Alright guys, how you doing? Chris here with Armattan Quads. This is, I guess, video that's slightly anticipated, I guess, by some guys. I've mentioned that I would make a video to show you some new things we've been working on that we're about to release, namely the F1 lineup quadcopters by Armattan. And you know, I've been thinking about how to go about making this video, and I figured I would start with this. And I think that guys who are familiar with the Armattan quads will be quite familiar with what they're looking at here. And what we got is a center plate for one of our CF acrobatic model, and over here we got a CF 226 arm, which would then mount like this. And then once basically assembled, it would look something like this. And as you can see, if I may note, this is my own model now, but I built these guys like this. You see the wires are going through here, through the arms. That's kind of how I built them. That's how it was designed. Those were actually designed for wires, for ESC wires, so we can put that on there nice and cleanly like this. And then one of the things that we've, that I've thought about doing for a while now is sort of trying to introduce some aluminum hardware to assemble some of our models. But this one is problematic because if you use aluminum screws in these holes and you get a very hard impact on the ground, the bolts will shear. Once the bolts shear, likely you're going to damage the wires there and even get more damages through electronics shorting out when it's making contact with sharp carbon fiber in terms of a crash. So I've never wanted to move away from using iron bolts on these. Essentially we kept using just much stronger iron bolt on this, but as you can imagine, even with the iron bolts, when you hit the ground really hard, you're going to have a lot of stress put on this bolt here, right? And of course this stress is going to then translate to the other bolt and also to the center plates, in terms of loosening things up, I guess you could say. And something that I've been thinking about doing for quite some time now is I wanted to find a way to design these models, these acrobatic models, in a way that would be more efficient. We've learned a lot in the last few years, last couple of years I would say, about different ways of putting things together, and also we've experimented with different thickness of carbon fibers and whatnot. And then also we've got better production facilities now that we're able to make use of, and it's really helping us, working, basically spending time on these things and having the ability to make them better. So essentially, let me put this aside now and let me bring this here in contrast. And what you've got here is a CF 226 arm right here. Although it's not called a CF 226, it's called the F1 Acro 226. It's been renamed, it's been revamped. We are not going to discontinue the older models, by the way. These guys are the backbone of what we've been doing for quite some time. They've been our biggest seller for a long time. And there's a whole lot of these models out there, and guys do not have to worry about not being able to get replacement parts or warranted parts for any of our models at this point. The parts will be available, the support will be there, but we're trying to move into directions where we're looking at what we've been doing in the past and thinking, how can we improve this? And this would be sort of how it started, because it would go like this and like this and like this. So what you're looking at here is basically a complete revamp of how we mount the arms to a center plate with an acrobatic platform. And this is basically what I wanted. Those were what you're looking at here is very much the drawings that I came up with in terms of this hollow in the center here. Of course, the refined curves and the hole placement and all the details of this was done for this particular model was done by I guess two other designers, Matt and Michel. They collaborated together on this. But essentially what we're looking at here, as I mentioned, is a completely different way to install equipment, to assemble the frame, I mean, in order to be able to have some equipment in the center here if we wanted to do that, and also in order to allow us to use aluminum hardware. And the reason for this now is that on the side impact, as you can see now, the stress is not going all onto one bolt as you would with this. By design, the way it's assembled is that then the stress from the impact is going to be transferred to each of these arms at the same time, and then transferred to the forearm, and each bolt act together as in holding these arms together in a much more structurally sound way, I guess you could say. And then from there we're able to use aluminum hardware on this without having to worry about them shearing in a crash. And then of course, as I mentioned, we've got a nice hollow in the middle here, and there's a whole lot of things we can do with this, which we're actually working on at the moment. More about this will be shown to you guys later as our work moves forward. Now if we put this on top of this here, and you're looking at CF F1 Acro 226 frame. The arms are designed by Michel. Some of the curves, refined curves around the arms here, were done by Matt, who completed the Acro design. And yeah, so this is one of the models that came out of our work together recently, and assembled it looks like this. So now in contrast to a 226, I guess the earlier version 226, you can see that there's a lot of different things going on here in terms of both the width of the arms, which allow for more air to travel through and create more efficiency, and also in terms of reducing the footprint of the center section, right? And then on top of that, we're able, because we're reducing weight so much here, we're able to go with thicker arms at 5 millimeters. And because we do not have that, you could say, that weaker center section here, you see, once we have the arms mounted like this, you know, you're still looking at having some flex happening in the center section here, that you could literally, you know, essentially bend the frame a bit like this. Whereas with this, the way it's mounted together now, it's, I would say it's about 300% stiffer with the thicker arms and a different mount. It's about 300% stiffer than the original models were. So that's, I guess, for the Acro models, guys. I'm going to show you a couple more of them. Over here we've got a 258, and this time, instead of using, as in the past, all the same width arms, but essentially just changing the length of them, we're considering that we're putting more thought into this design now. And for each model, as they get larger, the arms actually get wider as well, to account for, you know, the extra leverage that these models have in a crash that may end up causing an arm to fracture. So the longer it is, the wider it needs to be. And then finally, this guy I just absolutely love, as the CF355 now. The exact same center, footprint in the center. It's just gorgeous. And despite being I guess a very small footprint in the center, which you would think would affect the rigidity of this, it is still more rigid than the 355 that we've had for quite some time now, I guess, in our repertoire of models. And again, that's because of the way it is designed there. So this is the first video of 2 videos that I will make. In the next video, we're going to look at different models that are essentially, we're essentially using this as a starting point, and then we're moving on to essentially more of a FPV racing style to this. So that's that. Stay tuned for the next video, guys. Thank you.